Hello everyone, welcome to Wayne and Darth. I'm Wayne.
And I'm Darth, and welcome to our analysis of Episode 1 of Star Wars, Andor. So our first detail actually comes in the Star Wars intro, where they actually added a new droid at the end. This droid's called B2EMO, and he's kind of acting like Cassian's poor man's R2-D2 unit, and since he's now in the intro, I'm assuming we're going to see more of him in later episodes. We then go to this harshly lit nighttime catwalk, and we see Cassian just walking down it in the rain. Then we get our first title card of the show. It says Morlana 1 and gives us the actual time of the show, which is 5 BBY, which if you don't know means 5 years before Star Wars A New Hope, or the Battle of Yavin. We then see Cassian move about during these lower levels Coruscant-esque city, very dingy, very dirty, and very scummy feeling.
This is where the fun begins.
We would be honored if you would join us.
And then we see him walk into this cantina, which I believe they confirm later to be an actual brothel. So yeah, this is definitely a pretty dingy place. Andor then begins immediately asking questions about a girl from Kenari, and we find out that later he's looking for his sister. However, we're never given a name, and Cassian leaves practically empty-handed. However, he is followed by these two sentry guards, which are going to be kind of like our Empire police force in this series. They ask for an ID, but we all really know that they're just trying to find a way to arrest him. Now, interestingly, Cassian plays this scenario very cool, and he just puts his hands in the air and just asks them to grab 300 credits out of his pocket, seemingly just wanting to get rid of him. Of course, this is just an illusion to draw him in so he can knock him out, and he accidentally actually kills one of the guards before purposely killing the other one to kind of hide the evidence. This kind of really sets the tone for the series. This isn't about Cassian being like a Luke Skywalker and becoming a rebel hero. It's about Cassian becoming more than just a murderer and, well, scum and villainy. We then see Cassian leave the planet in this very interestingly modified Y-Wing looking ship with a crew cabin in the front. And he heads to this planet called Ferrix, which is in the same system as Morlana. Now this is a very interesting detail, because normally Star Wars planets are in two separate systems, or solar systems if you will. This is one of the first few times that Star Wars actually had two planets in the same system, so this is a very interesting new detail. We then get our very first shot at B2EMO, and he's walking down the street. He's being chased by these kind of hog, dog, wolf creatures, which are similar to the ones we saw in Solo, but I think they're actually a new creature. Either way, we get this pretty funny scene of one of them trying to take a whiz on him, and he just zaps it with his little claw arm like R2-D2. Anyway, we see him move along to Cassian's home, where he's trying to wake him up. He tells him he's got something he sent him to find, which we don't actually get too much detail on. However, him trying to wake Cassian up triggers a flashback to Kenari, which is Cassian's homeworld. We actually see Cassian's sister, and they're all talking in this Kenari dialect, which we have no idea what it's saying as of right now. And what directly triggered this flashback was B2EMO calling Cassian Casa, which was a nickname we see his sister call him throughout the Kenari flashback. The flashback ends with seeing this kind of Corvette crashing into the Kenari just mountains there, and we don't really get any context what exactly is going on. B2EMO then tells Cassian that Jezzy and Femi came by bringing Marva's medicine and that Brasso is looking for him. Not too much context for this just yet either. However, Cassian then cuts him off and tells him to lie and tell that he hasn't seen nor know where Cassian is. And then he hurriedly leaves his home and heads to this market square where we see a variety of new aliens to Star Wars. Cassian then meets up with Brasso, who looks like he's actually a miner or a manufacturer for maybe one of the Empire's subsidiaries, or maybe for spice like on Kessel. Anyway, Cassian's trying to get Brasso to agree to this cover story, so that way he's not getting pinned for these murders back on Morlana 1. We actually learn a little interesting details about Cassian. Most importantly, we find that Cassian has a lot of debts, so they're really setting him up to be this Han Solo sort of character, but much more shaded and gray. We then cut to this security office where we see Inspector Cyril Karn, who's set up to be our main antagonist, discussing with one of his chief officers about the murders. Now, the main chief decides to make up this cover story because, like most things in the Empire, corruption runs rampant. So the chief decides to blame their deaths on an accident and put it at that, as he leaves for a security meeting with one of the Imperial governors. Now, Inspector Karn is clearly appalled by this, and he's definitely not going to let this situation go to rest that easily. But one thing to notice is that this Imperial office is very dirty, which kind of fits with the entire idea that the Empire leaves most of its smaller planets, most of the Outer Rim, to fend for themselves, and they're definitely low on the priority list, so that'll be very interesting to see how the show uses that in the future. But Wayne, what do you think so far?
Well, personally, I thought they underused the Klingons in Khan.
What?
Yeah, Khan, the big bad. Him versus Picard and him versus Spock, let me tell you. Such a great mashup. I just want to see that again on television.
Our apologies, we had some slight technical difficulties. Wayne seemed to have choked on his words there and felt dead tired afterwards, so we'll be hearing from him in a little bit. We then got to Andor meeting this mechanic named Bix, and she's clearly kind of the source of all the scum and villainy, all the smuggling activities. She's got the contact, and that's who Andor's trying to reach, this mysterious contact who's trying to presumably contraband and things of the like. Now, Andor says he has this untraceable NS9 Star Path unit, which could just be a MacGuffin, or a way to advance the plot, if you didn't know, but I'm definitely thinking this is how we're going to get Stellan Skarsgård introduced, as we saw in the teaser clip and the trailers. We then get another flashback where we see Cassian getting this ceremonial war paint from the looks of it being placed on him, which is a very interesting sort of dive into this Kenari culture. We then return back to Inspector Karn, where he goes into this computer room, and we finally understand what these Star Wars computers are. They're tracking hyperspace lanes, or space lanes within the system, and he identifies Cassian's ship due to its lack of an ID, and he orders the man there to try to track it. We then see Cassian meet up with this man named Nurchi, who's clearly a loan shark and is asking for his deposit back. He even threatens Cassian with some hired alien muscle that he has. This is clearly going into the character archetype of Cassian being this Han Solo, always in debt, really shady business sort of guy. But of course, Cassian's able to talk himself out of the situation. We then cut to Bix looking for a bending mesh tech filter, which could also be code for what I believe is a comms, because we see her go up into this tower, climb a ladder, and then seemingly type out a message in Morse code, or the equivalent for Star Wars. We then cut back to the Sentry Guard office, and we get our first look at some blue space ramen in Star Wars. Very interesting detail. Then we see Karn come in, and he's clearly sidestepping authority and ordering a complete investigation to try to find Cassian. Speaking of who, Cassian's back at his ship, and he's taking out some form of an ID, which disgruntles this attendant here, who clearly has done some stuff for Cassian in the past, but kind of calls an end to the relationship. Clearly this is supposed to be Cassian burning another bridge and getting himself into more trouble. Finally, the show ends with another flashback to Cassian in that war paint. He's kind of giving an emotional goodbye to his sister as he goes off with his tribe, I suppose, into, hunting or maybe looting that crashed ship. We don't really know the details just yet, especially since it's all in this Kenari language. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this show is going to handle this dynamic. Unfortunately, that's all we have for today's episode. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, and we'll be sure to come back with another episode of Wayne and Darth. Otherwise, we hope you all enjoyed the video. And until next time, party on, Wayne.
Party on, Darth. And as always, keep on building.